and attempting to play every adventure game ever made. I'm Jason Dyer. I am currently a consulting game designer. I was not 11 years ago when I started this. I was a full-time math teacher, and then I switched for a while working at an education company on an interactive education product, and now I'm working in game design. And I guess the most pertinent link down here is the bluerenga.blog because every game that I have played, I have written about on this blog. So that is definitely the link to keep an eye on for this. Just to give the mission statement is for me to play and blog about every adventure game ever made in nearly chronological order. Now I put the nearly there because sometimes it doesn't work out. I will talk about that a little bit later. There's certainly some questions that can come up right away with this. First off, what is an adventure game? That's a perfectly good, valid question. Before I get into that, though, let me just give you a very brief history of the start of adventure games, or at least where I generally start adventure games. I started with 1973. There's a game, Caves, which you can see a picture of right here. It is a game where you explore these nodes that are just these numbers, and you're looking for an exit. There is no description to the numbers. It is just wandering from node to node, and it is not a very exciting game. But it was developed the same time as Hunt the Wumpus, which is a much more interesting game. You see this squashed dodecahedron, that's the map it was on, and there is a Wumpus that you are trying to hunt with a bow and arrow. And then later, Caves got developed into the public Caves, which if you were at the in-person version of NarraScope, you may have actually gotten to see. Public Caves was a derivative of Caves, which had kind of the same idea, but it let people build their own rooms with descriptions and then add graffiti to them so that you were actually adding text to the room. So it was still, there was no plot. There's no puzzles. It's just, here's this setup where you can look at rooms, you can add rooms. You can think of it maybe as a proto-mud, kind of. But at NarraScope, we actually had an exhibition that Mr. Plotkin over here actually helped set up. And you can, on the Internet Archive, you can play what people added when this was at NarraScope. So you can actually try it out here. I would call this only marginally an adventure game. As a definition, I would say that needs exploration and maybe puzzles, and this kind of has the exploration, but it didn't start pre-built. You're making it yourself. So that's 1973. 1974 had the first of what I would really genuinely call an adventure game. This is where Pinketer Langston came up with his Wander system. And the first game he wrote was called Castle, where you are rescuing a princess in a castle. This is some of the map. And it generally runs rather like a classic text adventure. It is generally you type in directions to wander around and pick up things and solve puzzles. Notice this is before, I haven't even mentioned Crowther Woods. So yes, he came up with it entirely independently. And it's actually a genuine adventure game. Now, the only catch is we don't have the 1974 version anymore because it was at a old school and he changed schools that he was teaching at, and we only have the 1977-1978 code. So the other interesting thing about Castle, incidentally, is that it has a prince and a princess. You can rescue either or both based on your preference. They were thinking about this very early on. 1975, you had, at least late 1975, early 1976, Crowther, who had just gotten a divorce, wrote Adventure based on his caving experiences. It had all the different hallmarks of adventure, though. It had magic. It had the XYZZY. It had the rod with a star on it. It had puzzles where you could actually ask for hints with the puzzles. The only thing is it wasn't quite finished when he was done with it. He did leave it unfinished. If you go down to the underground, there's a part that says under construction, and if you go the wrong direction, the game crashes. 1977 is when Don Woods picked it up, and there was Crowther Woods Adventure that was released a couple months later, and then that's when Adventure got famous. And Zork got started based on Adventure, and it was started in the summer. So this map down here is David Loveling's map of Adventure. And yeah, that's kind of how eventually it started famous. So even though it got developed in 1974 first, that one was totally independent. Nobody picked up on it. And it was only until 1977 that really got started. Okay. Brief check for questions here. All right. There was a question about English adventure games. No, I am playing every single language. I will talk about one that's in a different language in a moment. But yeah, no, it's not English only. It is Japanese. It is Swedish. It is Hungarian. It is all the languages. So, all right, going on. So adventure game, regular point and click. Actually, anyone know where the screenshot's from? Just out of curiosity. Feel free to type in chat. Like I said, I'm watching chat. If you know which game this is from. Nope. All right. Yeah, it's okay. This is Lamplight City. The developer I know is going to be exhibiting his next game in the hall. You can go check it out. This is Myst. So first person, click any of those are fine. And also, of course, regular text adventures, which I have been spending the majority of my time with because that's what was designed first. I am not including game books. Sadly, I really like game books, but I'm not including armchair detective type things. This is from the 1977 issue of Games Magazine in December. I'm not including RPGs unless it's really a hybrid adventure like Quarterstaff from Infocom was, for the most part, not including RPGs. And kind of sadly, I'm not including visual novels for the most part, although there's a lot of edge cases going on here. Out of curiosity, oh, there we go. We got a delayed answer. Thank you. Is it Daniel? Thank you. Actually, does anyone recognize this game? Curiosity. There we go. It's Steins Gate. Yeah. I played through this last year, and I wouldn't call it an adventure game. It has choices. It's a very interesting game, but I don't actually know where the fine line is. Now, you may ask, hey, you're only up to 1982. Why is it that you're even worrying about this? Well, there are actually visual novels I have identified going all the way back to 1979. This is one from 1981. I'll pause here so you can watch a little bit of it. This is Billy Goat's Gruff. It is a children's visual novel. That's what all the examples I found have been. There is a story where you push a button to move on. There are visuals that go with the words. There's one I found that actually randomly generated the story. This one is always the same story. So even starting back in 1979, 1980, you actually do get that kind of game. And I have to think a little bit about, does this count as an adventure game or not? I would not count this, even though it does count as a kinetic novel. And as far as I know, nobody's ever written about this. So it's still part of that. There's plenty of edge cases, though. This one right here is called Mechuden. It's a Japanese PC 98 game from 1992. It is a Japanese point-and-click adventure game. So this is actually like LucasArts or Sierra, the way you move around. This character right here, you click, they move around. You notice there are lots of different movement options and talking and so forth. The problem is it is really, in gameplay, like a visual novel. You actually get to talk to people, and that's it. You're not really doing puzzles. It dispenses with that. There's combat. There's parts where you actually fight things, but it takes away the puzzle part. But it's edge case enough. I'd probably include it when I get to it. And there are some edge cases I went ahead and gone and done anyway. There is, for example, Alchemstone, which I did not mean that. There, ignore it. Okay, Alchemstone is a game from 1981, which is based off of the same idea as Masquerade, which was this book that came out that had the hidden location of a golden hair. This was released when the Alchemstone hunt was still going on, and it had a hidden Alchemstone buried somewhere in the United States, an actual physical object. And you wander through this maze right here, and you are looking for clues that are on walls, ceilings, floors. You can actually look at the ceiling and the floor. The clues kind of flash and sometimes are sort of invisible, but yeah, there's the clues were hidden inside an Apple II game. We managed to, that's me and actually the readers of the blog, managed to find all the clues, and we have tried to put them together the best we can. It is still very much unsolved, though. And as far as we know, based on talking with the lawyer who was responsible for certifying the find, it is still hidden out there somewhere. Somewhere buried in the United States is a Alchem stone from 1981 where the clues are in an Apple II game. So if you want to look for it, you go have at it. It's still a mystery. I would not really call this adventure game. It's a puzzle game, but there's not really a plot to it necessarily. It's just the clues happen to be hidden in this interesting way. Another game that is also by the way, Mark, the only problem with that link is I don't think there's a way in Internet Archive to switch disks. You have to switch disks really quickly on that game. You can still download it from there and play it like an emulator. So if you want to use the link that Mark just put to try Alchem Stone, just be warned that I think you're going to need to download it rather than just hit the play button, because unfortunately Internet Archive is really bad about having to switch disk size. Another one that I tried very recently, Kane's Jawbone, not even a computer game, I mean 1934. Torquemada was basically the inventor of the cryptic crossword. And this got really big on Book Talk, if you follow that at all. And actually, this is still very, very active. If you actually look at, I have a Google Doc where people are commenting every day trying to solve this thing. But it was a 100-page mystery novel. It's part of the puzzle book, this mystery novel right there. And the pages are very cryptic, but they are out of order. You have to arrange all 100 pages in order. And there are murderers and there are victims, and you have to identify all the murderers and all the victims. And this is actually, the way this is written, it's very elliptical and cryptic, and it's a very hard to solve thing. But it was really fascinating to go through from a game design sense, even though it was not, what would traditionally call an adventure game. And there's actually multiple narrators, and it is obfuscating the fact that there's multiple narrators, and you're trying to sort which narrator goes with which page, and that helps you actually come up with the sequence. Because everything's written from eye perspective, you can't really tell when you switch to person or not. So, so I'm totally willing to play edge cases. It's Aaron Reed and his project sometimes made rules and then violated them. I can do the same thing when I need to. Another question. Oh yeah, Joey. Yeah, Kane's Jawbone had a recent reprint. Go buy it. It is fascinating. I really recommend it. And I just messed up my camera. I'm sorry. Do you actually mean every single adventure game? There was a question already. Other languages? Yes, I do mean other languages. There are some that are very highly technically difficult. For example, Adventures in Videoland, which is a game from 1982 by David Lubar. It was printed in a magazine. Is a game that you're meant to play on an Apple II, and then you hook up a laser disc to it, and you get the copy of the movie Roller Coaster from 1977. And then what it does is it actually queues up parts of the laser disc to switch to, so that it's an illustrated text adventure where the illustrations are actually ripped from the movie. And the way this is done right here, this is the podcaster Kay Savitz, who the In by Brew podcast, I believe, actually showed this off where there was a DVD player instead of a laser disc. But this is very technically difficult. I eventually going to have to try to figure it out. So there are some technical difficulties, but even then, I'll try to work it out eventually. But yes, I do really mean every single one, every single language, including other languages. I have some written up that are in other languages other than English. I don't really care about the quality. It's okay if it's a game that looks like this. I actually find this kind of thing charming and interesting. This is a screenshot right here from the game Race for Midnight from 1981. That's a bugbear right there. That face. That's a the wizard of this particular game has removed the bodies of the monsters, so you just see their heads. That's kind of the premise, and you're trying to find a cure for you're going to turn into a werewolf, and that's the premise of the game. Yeah, and it doesn't even matter if it's published or not. This is a game that's what I call a private game. Actually, Emily Short first used the word. A private game is a game that you don't actually write to be published. You just write it for family or friends, or just yourself. And what this person here, Roger Wilcox, did is between 1980 and 1982, he wrote a series of over 20 TRS-80 games that he never published, other than just, between friends and family. Well, there's one exception. He tried to publish a game with the book Captain 80 Basic Adventures, but he was too late on the deadline. Otherwise, just these were games that he wrote that, just people he knew played. That's it. Eventually, in the 21st century, he did dump them all on the internet. So not totally private, but I would still count as that because they were written with the context of here, I'm trying to learn how to write adventure games. I'm just writing them for myself. No thought of trying to publish it. And now he was a teenager at the time, but a lot of the people writing at this time were teenagers. The game I just showed you was written by a teenager. This one with the bugbear. A gentleman, Gregory Hassett, wrote 10 adventure games between the ages of 12 and 14. And he was published, he was featured in quite a number of magazines at the time. It was not that uncommon for a teenager to be publishing things. So this game, Trash Island, it's a treasure hunt, except that your treasures that you're hunting are trash. Just briefly explain what I mean by treasure hunt. I'm meaning like the original Crowther Woods Adventure. If you played that, there's a building and you're trying to gather all these treasures that are hidden around the map and then put them in the building, and then you get to an end game if you do that. So there's not really a plot. You're just, it's kind of a way to have this game mechanic where you're searching all around the map without having to worry too much about the details. And because everybody copied Adventure, first off, if you can see on this chart, I actually plotted the different kinds of plots that adventure games have had. By 1981, about a quarter of all games still were treasure hunts, so it was still very, very popular. It's just also the number of games increased, so I'm still having to play a lot of treasure hunts. So this one was a treasure hunt, and the really interesting thing about the gimmick here is because you are collecting trash, you can actually turn something into trash. So there's a bottle where you take the pills out of the bottle, and once it's an empty bottle, now it's trash, and it actually gets the little stars next to it, which means that it is something that you can get a score from. So one of the patterns that I've noticed playing through these games is when something involves object transformation, it tends to be a much higher elevated puzzle than a lot of the other puzzles. When you have, here's an object, here's a puzzle, object goes to puzzle, there's a limited number of things you can do with that. But if you actually have to think about, okay, how do I turn this object into the thing that I need to solve the puzzle, then it becomes a very interesting puzzle. That's a pattern that I noticed over and over when I've been playing these games. That tends to make it a good game. There's one that's like otherwise an ordinary game from 1980 called Gargoyle's Castle that is fantastic, basically because nearly every object you use has some kind of transformation you can do with it. So let me briefly check chat here. Audio only adventure game. I actually have heard of that one. I do not have my list up to the 2000s though. Eventually, I'm hoping to get the Bionic so I can live that long. So, all right, moving on here. What happens when a new game comes up from a year that you've already passed? That happens more than I would like. That can happen for quite a few reasons. Sometimes there's a game I know about, but it's lost game, and then it suddenly gets discovered. So then I'll just loop back at some point and play it then. Some games that have been lost that I've helped retrieve. Wumpus 3 public games, which I talked about already. The Wander was lost until I helped find it. Journey, which I'll talk about in a second. Ringen is a game that was originally in Swedish, and you can actually play it now, kind of. You have to go to Viking Mud. The game was translated into English, then embedded into a mud. And if you go to the right area of the mud, you can find essentially the original text adventure game. I managed to kind of document all that. Bilingual Adventure, which I had to rescue off of a really obscure archive site, is the first French game I know of. It lets you switch between English and French. You can type English and boom, it goes right over to English, or you can type French. This is a feature that I don't even know of in like other text adventures. But in 1979, they actually did it. They made a bilingual adventure. So it's just original Crowther Woods adventure translated into French. And I'll also talk about Zosk later. But let me mention Journey real quick, because that's actually an interesting example. This was a game from 1979. I actually first heard about it because Roberta Williams had made a quote about the game she had played before starting Mystery House. That's the 1980 graphic adventure game. And, she did Sierra, King's Quest, all these kinds of things. Hopefully people are basically familiar with her. But Journey, I hadn't heard of when I saw that mention. It's like, what is this game? It's not on my list. It's not on anybody's list. I actually looked high and low for this, and I did find Howard Feldman, who runs the Museum of Adventure Games, actually had a copy. And so he was willing to dump the audio of the tape, and I had to do some technical wrangling to make it actually work. It was partially truncated, and I was able to reconstruct it and able to play the game. So I actually rescued this game from basically a tape. What's really fascinating about it, so like I said, Roberta Williams played it before even running her first adventure game, is it has some very Sierra-like depths to it. Just to give you a quick example here, there's this part where you're in an alley and you need to open a cover to go into a sewer. So open cover, manhole cover is open. I'm not going to read all this, but later in the game, assuming that you've done that, what happens is there's a jail cell that you can land in by doing some kind of crime, and there's an open window that you can jump out of. But if you try to jump out of the window, you actually fall into the open end. It says someone has carelessly left that darn cover off again. So you essentially killed yourself with this really long delay. So this is really, when you look at a lot of the Deaths and Sierra games, they're not just it randomly kills you. There's actually sort of a comedy aspect where you're handed your own rope to hang yourself, which is what this does. And this is honestly the first game I've ever seen something like this out of all the games I played. And it seems like that's Roberta Williams internalized this from a game from 1979. So that's fascinating. Check chat again real quick. Oh yes, other Journey games. There are many Journey games. Yes. Okay, let's talk about another one that has a kind of date issue. Crystal Caves, which never got lost. It was on internet in the IF archive forever, and it was somebody in 1984, I believe, dropped it on the internet as a port of this game that seemed to be basically a derivative adventure, except that it is entirely different from adventure. So they took the source code, and rather than just like adding some treasures, they really wrote a brand new game. This is a brand new version. And what you're seeing right here is kind of the first part of the cave that you go in. And instead of being like regular treasures, like here, there's this cave pearls. Those aren't real cave pearls. Well, those are a feature of the cave. When you try to pick them up, they break. So there's things in like every room that you can accidentally break, and it's just a part of the cave. It's subverting the treasure idea that if you actually try to run into a real cave and grab stuff, you smash things, and there's a ranger that follows you around and kicks you out of the cave if you actually break stuff. So this is very much subverting the adventure idea. I think I originally, I wasn't sure what year it was because there was no date at it at all. I did eventually find out what it was, though. I'd like to see some guesses, especially if you haven't read my blog. Just type in a year you think this was made. Just guess, honestly. Based on my description. Let's see here, 78, 76. Let's see here. All right, interesting. Okay. So this game does include some elements of Woods' expansions of Crowther, so it does have to be at least 1977. But we know from somebody who actually played the game way back when, and some other material that verified it was the same game that he was playing. He actually remembered a password that I didn't even talk about. It was 1977, so the same year as Crowther Woods Adventure. So right away, as soon as it came out, people were subverting the adventure idea with something like this. I mean, it's just amazing and intense that could happen right away. To give you another example of something where it was, I had to do a reverse date thing. This is Atlantean Odyssey. Every single room is illustrated. Let's just do date guesses again. When do you think this was released? Let's see here. See, it looks like 1980, 1982, 1983. One person said 79. That's bold, right? Mystery House was 1980. I'll give you another second here. Anyone wants to guess? All right, it was 1979, the year before Mystery House. So I don't know if you ever heard, Mystery House, the first graphical adventure game. It was not actually the first graphical adventure game. And we know it was 1979 because we have source code. So 1979, Terry Carpenter. The story behind this game actually is that Terry Carpenter, or sometimes went by Terry Lee, was published through Writer Fantasy Creations, a gentleman named Bob Liddell, who is the person behind that. Published this game called Lost Dutchman's Gold. Now, in 1979, the way you published a game was you went into a store, a game store, I mean, not a game store, a computer store, and you just hung a Ziploc on the wall. I mean, you asked permission, but you hung a Ziploc on the wall, and that's how you sold your game. There was no distribution, really, at all. And so maybe you sold like 30 copies whenever you sold something, or 20. And that's what happened here. They actually put this on the wall. It sold out, and the owner was like really excited, and Bob Liddell went back and promised 3 more games, including the next game would be the next week. So yeah, what ended up happening was they made, to promise getting the game back that fast, they made Spider Mountain, which is just the Western game right here, reskinned to be a fantasy game. So it's very much the same map, just turned into a fantasy game. That's how we made the second game. But at the same year, this is how this one got made, this graphic adventure. It eventually got turned into machine code, and the machine code version is 1980. That's how I had that date, but it actually was originally 1979. So yeah, it's one of the things to say about this is I try not to think too much in terms of what was the first of something, because usually you run into, oh, well, that's another thing that was actually before that, and it's happened so many times. I try not to think too hard in those terms. I know a lot of people, they get really excited, oh, this was the very first of this example, but in historical terms, quite often the third or fourth or fifth version of something is the thing that got famous. I mean, game books were invented long before Choose Your Own Adventure. There's ones dating back to the 30s, the 40s, and each time, like, they weren't famous. People forgot about them, and they kept reinventing them. People kept reinventing the idea of this Choose Your Own Adventure thing until Choose Your Adventure actually got famous enough that everybody had heard of them. But before that, it was reinvented over and over. So it takes it being famous, too, not just somebody invents it. All right. Yes, TRS-80 I would call this graphics, though. This Atlantean Odyssey, this is from the machine language version. Nobody's typed in the basic before. Somebody can. It's got really long poke commands, but you could actually, this is, if you want to do some research and see if there's any differences. I mean, I've studied it enough to know that it is essentially the same game. But yeah, the version that I have the picture of is actually a machine code. So it's the later port that goes a little bit faster. All right. So let's see here. Yeah, okay. All right. We're going to play a game. So this is a game. Actually, only a couple days ago, I'm going to pronounce his name possibly a little off. Giuliano Alemani emailed me and asked me about this. This manual got uploaded fairly recently. This is a game I actually had, but it had no date to it. I didn't have a date to it. It's a game that has graphics and sound. And it turns out the manual says copyright 1980. So this may also have been published before Mystery House. I need to do some more research. This is by Mad Hatter Games, the same people who did some of the early Greg Hassett stuff who I already mentioned. That was the 12 to 14-year-old who published the game. And we're going to try it. I did play through it once, but it has randomly generated elements. It is a procedural game from 1980 with graphics and sound. Yeah, so let's try it. So I'm going to keep an eye on chat, and this is a text adventure, so you guys get to type commands, and I'm just going to try to follow along. Now, there's going to be a bunch of clashing things. I'm just going to pick one. If something's really popular, I'll try to pick that. I also going to see if this actually works technically without crashing, so I'm going to hope it does. Okay, so I'm going to switch screen share to my TRS-80 emulator. Let's hope this works. Let's see. Why is it? So this was doing this right yesterday. And now it does not want to share the window of that I have open. I also can switch it to my camera being the game. Is there a way to, does the camera go full screen and gather if I just have my camera on? Is there a way to do that? Surf? We'd all have to click. Okay. All right. Can I have everybody click on my face? Is that possible? Can we all click? Yeah, because I have set it up so that we could I can switch my camera because I've got my virtual camera is now, and hopefully I had to reverse the direction of the picture. So there we go. All right, boop me. Okay. Does this need a reverse? Do I need to flip it? It's backwards. Okay, I was afraid of that. Okay, it double reversed on me. Let's fix that. Give me just a second, and we will fix that. Okay. Okay. There we go. You okay now? Does it look right? All right. There is, again, sound to this. I don't know if the sound's going to work, but it may be better if it doesn't work for you because this is a TRS-80 we're talking about here. But it does do things like when there's a little dirge when you find the victim. So this is Sleuth. You have your partner has just been assigned to investigate a crime at the Bodwell estate. Communicate your instructions to him using 2-word commands, such as take inventory, move north, save, help, and quit. And I will give you some help here. You can also accuse or handcuff people. Matt, I will try to talk through the best I can. I don't know if you can accuse yourself. You can use a baby, though. You'll see. Yeah, unfortunately, TRS-80, this doesn't have a really great text thing going on. So I will try to narrate the best I can what's going on to the screen too, though. And yes, you can definitely accuse the butler. All right, so I am in a police station. There is a picture of a police station here with a desk. All right, send me commands. What should I do? You can go south or east, by the way. That's the way this window works. Read file. All right. Let's see. You can't read file. Just to speed things along a bit, you can look file. Yeah, examine or look works. All right. And you're going to look at desk 2. Okay. Look at desk 2. Nothing else in the desk. Okay. Take the key. Okay. Good. All right. All right. I just got to follow along the best I can. All right. Now what? Let's see here. South. Okay. Joey wants to go south. All right. I am in the jail. There's a bunk and a sink. Let's see. Okay. Look, bunk. I think search works too. I think you can search. I found handcuffs. Okay. All right. Good. Those are important to have. I don't know why they're hiding in the bunk. Again, this is randomly generated. So the handcuffs I've never found in the bunk before. Just so you know, I have never actually, again, this is entirely, all the items are placed randomly. The mystery is random too. All right. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Look, sync. There's nothing there. Let's just speed things along here and go back here. Somebody would want to look at the desk again or open the desk. Open desk. I think look as already counts as open. So, all right. And Jerry wants to go east. Okay. Let's see here. We are driving. Okay. To narrate, I am on the road in the police van. And there's a van now in the graphic, and we can drive south or east. And Catherine wants to look at the sign. Great. It says, beware of falling rocks. All right. Let's see. You want to go east? Okay. All right. Drive east. By the way, did you hear the sound? There was sound just now. No, okay. Oh, there's a beep boop. Beep beep boop boop. I could crank up the TRS-80 volume, but again, it might be a bit much. Oh, is there a baby? There's a baby. Okay, accused baby. You did the murder, baby. Gaga goo goo. Let's see here. Handcuff baby. Handcuff a little bitty baby. Apparently does not let us handcuff or arrest the baby. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm in the driveway of the state. There's a van, rolls, and a baby. So they just kind of left the baby in the driveway, apparently. There's no new information from looking at the baby. Put the baby in the van. Okay, let's try taking the baby. People are wanting me to try to take the baby away. You cannot take the baby. I guess we're not allowed to steal babies. All right, look the rolls, sure. All right, what else? Okay, deputize baby. I don't think deputize works. Let's try it though. Let's see. I don't know how to deputize something. Call child services. I don't know how to call child something. I'm sorry. All right, they want to go south now. All right, let's go south. I'm in the vestibule. I see a coat rack, a mat, and a gardener. Let's see here. Okay, search the rack. I think search works. I think you can search. Hold on. It's either maybe just examine or look. Let me check real quick. There we go. Examine. Oh, actually, what am I doing? It's rack, mat, search mat. That's what I want. Sorry. Okay, you can search. Let's see here. I think talk doesn't work. You have to. The only thing you can do is accuse them or look at them. All right. So I think we didn't find anything. Oh, okay. I see. There's a. It's a coat. You have to say coat. So neither the coat rack or the mat helped out. Let's go ahead and accuse the gardener. The gardener denies being the culprit. Oh no. Okay. Just to be clear, by the way, just to make things a little bit easier, because it did mention in the manual, you need to be holding the murder weapon, the actual right murder weapon for an accusation to stick. So if you're actually holding the weapon that the murderer used while you're accusing them, then, all right, let's see here. Was there a pick in the first room that we didn't actually get? I don't think anybody said get the pick. Well, I guess we'll suffer the consequences of that later. All right, I'm in the living room. Sofa, bar, cook, pistol. We want to go east. Okay, we're going east. All right, we're now in a dining room. There's a table, a cabinet, and Mary. Oh yeah, the pick is actual item. Yeah, that's, the charm of this kind of game is you have this kind of misunderstanding. So, go back and get the pistol. Okay, let's get the pistol. Get pistol. It has been done. The baby did it with the sofa. Look, bar. I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to actually try to crank the sound for people since it is faint. And do we want to hear more sound? Let's do a survey. Do you want to hear more sound? We actually do need to find a murder victim. That is one of the things that we need to do. So there's a victim somewhere that we can find. Let me see here. I will try to bump sound here if I can. Okay, it's on 27. All right. I'm going to warn you. I cranked it up. Okay. Is Mary alive? Okay, well, let's check people here. So there's a cook here. Let's check if the cook is alive. There's Mary here. Let's see if Mary's alive. Okay. Let's see here. Where are we going next? Okay, we're going to search the cabinet. All right. Try unlocking drawer cabinet. Oh, the cabinet's locked. Ooh. All right, let's try the key. Oh, the key is lost in that one. Okay, when it says the key is lost, you have to use a pick. Should we go back for the pick? Okay. All right, so we're going back through living room, sofa, bar, cook. How's the sound? Passing the gardener again. All right. By the way, just to show you real quick, if you drive south, yeah, I'm in a courtroom. Oh, there's a key. Let's get that key too. So there's a judge and a jury. You return her and say solved once you're done with the case. Just so you know, there's a courtroom right there. Yes, beep boop. I know. Yeah. Okay, get the pick. All right. All right, we have the pick, so now we can pick the cabinet open. All right. Tree, pool, and George. You can't get the file. It's like a file cabinet. Look, George. Maybe the George is the dead body. Know to do information. All right. Look, pool. Found rope. Oh, we found a weapon. You want to take the rope? All right, we're getting you the rope. Good. Okay. Well, I'm carrying too much. Ooh, okay. What am I dropping? Drop the handcuffs. Okay. Yep. Inventory management, indeed. All right. Solarium, lounge, and fountain. Oh, let's see here. There's a knife in the fountain. I mean, there's a knife in the lounge, and there's nothing in the fountain. All right. Unlock cabinet. Oh, pick cabinet. That's right. Because there's no key for it. There you go. Now we can see. It may have nothing though. Oh, there we go. The hoe. That could be the murder weapon. There we go. Okay. I will do some wandering here. Let's see here. Drop pick. Okay, good. I can drop the pick and I can get the hoe. Okay. I'll do that. Let's see here. Icebox. There's a pantry. All right, unlocking pantry. I'll take the hoe in a moment, Mark. Let's try unlocking the pantry. We'll use, okay, we got a key 1 and a key 2, right? Let's try key 2. The baby in the corner. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, we're not going to probably go all the way through the game. I'm actually going to show you what a result is of kind of getting to the end in a moment. I would like to find the dead body though, because that's always interesting. Oh, there's a key 4. Maybe that will open the one I had trouble with. See here. So we're now in a library. There's a chair, a bookcase, and a book. Yeah, the baby's alive. Read book. You're carrying book. I'm carrying too much now because I picked up the key. Let's see here. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Okay, drop the hoe. Get book. Read book. I don't think you have enough time to read Crime and Punishment right now. Indeed, we don't, because we got about 3 minutes before I'm going to switch back. All right, let's go west. Let's see here. Maybe is the butler dead? Oh, no, the butler's not dead. Okay. Bathroom, toilet tub. Yeah, let's accuse the butler. Hold on. Look, nurse. I want to find the dead body. Where's it? There we go. All right, there we go. Now we got it. TRS-80 sound at its finest, everybody. By the way, this is the first game I know of, adventure game, that actually does have sound like this. So this may be another one of those firsts that, isn't usually actually a first. All right, so let's accuse the butler. Somebody wanted to accuse the butler. Butler denies being culprit. By the way, again, you do need to be holding the right weapon. So if it was the pistol, then it wasn't the butler. How do you know she was killed? Yeah, her body plays the funeral march. Yeah. So obviously that means that it was murder and not, something else, right? Okay, a hallway, clock, picture, poison. How do you know what weapon? That's an excellent question. I have no idea how you know what weapon. As far as I can tell, there's no way to actually tell. Yes, I think you have to accuse everybody with every weapon. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop this. I think we got generally the idea. So I have to go back to the other parts of the presentation. Let's stop the screen share of that. And let's see here. Hold on a second. Camera. It's back to me. Can you see me? Am I here? Yes. Okay. Screen share. Chrome tab. All right. Okay, back to here. Okay, so just to share real quick, if you actually do manage to have the right item and you accuse them, the breakdown under test questioning and admit being murder, and then you can arrest them. Actually, you have to put handcuffs on them. So you use handcuff, and then the graphic changes actually. So there's a little bit of graphical change, and then the gardener that follows you around. And then you can go to the courtroom, and it says, "Congratulations, Detective NarraScope, you cracked the case. Now remove your prisoner to jail and lock him up." So you have to go back to the jail, go back out again, and use the right key to lock the jail to finish the game. I actually messed it up. I used the wrong key, and he was not handcuffed. So this is what happened. I got killed. So this is what can happen. Even if you find the right murderer and so forth, you can still lose because the murderer can kill you if you have them unhandcuffed too long. All right, so that was a experience of what I quite often go through. I hope you enjoy a taste of it. Is it an adventure if there's any puzzle? Well, I mean, it is a puzzle. It's kind of an, for example, the whole idea of actually taking them back with the handcuffs and realizing you need the right key for the door for the jail, I would definitely consider a puzzle. The fact that the puzzle changes, like who's the murderer, it ended up being like, oh, I just find the right item and accuse. Now, why is it there was no hints for what the murder weapon is or the murderer is? Well, partially because the person who wrote this was really up to the limit. This is on a 16K TRS-80. There was not much room to put much else. So this was a procedural game, but constrained by technical difficulties, which is actually getting to my first point here, which is there are many early experiments that were later dropped. Some of these ideas were just intrinsically workable, but some of them were just too early. Like our game we just saw here, I don't think there was room for the author to even think about putting more stuff in it. It was already up to capacity in terms of the game. It kind of technically worked. You just had to randomly find the right murder weapon. There may be some secret thing. I've looked at the source code, but I haven't found a really good way to narrow it down. And what you just saw was what I call the adventure roguelike genre, which there's a lot of them from that era. There's a lot of them. I was really surprised that they just kept coming up. This one in the middle is from one called Mad Maze, which is entirely randomly generated map, entirely randomly generated items. This one over here, Madness of the Minotaur, not only has randomly generated items and map, but randomly generated puzzles. The way you solve things has puzzles that are unusual. So one of the things that's really useful about old adventure games I found is simply that you're going to see genres that you just don't see other places because they did an experiment and they kind of got dropped. And now there's lots of interest now in procedural generation, but when you're dealing with a 16K TRS-80, it wasn't quite as feasible. But you still have all these examples, and you can see kind of what worked and what didn't work in terms of the genre. Another genre that kind of rose up and then died right away is what I call the dungeon crawler adventure. So if you played an old RPG where you've got squares that you're going through, I mean, that's still a viable genre. You still find games people publish now that have that form, but nobody publishes adventures like this anymore. I mean, basically, this was the first-person adventure, like Myst, but for whatever reason, people remember Myst, but they totally forgot about this kind of game. This one from the left is, by the way, Death Maze 5000. The one on the right is from a game called Asylum. There's also lots of one-off experiments. The one on the left, which I actually considered playing with you, that's the other one I considered. It's called Spelunker. And there's supposed to be a game master who actually reads the descriptions of the rooms as somebody's going through the game. So it requires more than one person. So you have this asymmetrical setup where you have the players in the game and you have the one person who has more information. This is very unusual even for current games. There's a Keep Talking or Nobody Explodes, but I mean, you see a lot of these experiments and things that just died, and you can see why they died sometimes, or you can see like, wait a minute, why did people forget about this? This is a great idea. We should do it again. You know, I've actually seen that, like, use that as a game idea for some of these games. This is from Reality Ends. This is a completely open map right here. There is no walls or anything. You actually have this giant grid that you can travel to anywhere at any time, and it's an adventure game. So, yeah, Annie, that was the other one I thought of playing with you because I thought that I would work in this environment, but the sleuth kind of fit together with the roguelike idea, so I wanted to try that. Also, they're not all just TRSA games with really dodgy parsers. Some of them are genuinely good. Like some of them are legitimately like a Local Call for Death. I recommend everybody try. It is amazing. It is a mystery game where you basically type like in an open parser for the most part. It does keyword searching commands, and it actually works well for the constrained environment of this game. It's like a 2-room game. It starts off with this sort of interesting scene that you have to pay attention to, because it has some clues in it. But then there's a scene where you go in a room, the room on the cover of this right here, and you get to look at items, but there's also Lord Cullen with you who you're actually conversing with as you're going along, and you're passing along theories. And if you get stuck, he will actually give you hints, like maybe you should try looking at this next. So it runs amazingly smoothly as a mystery game. And it really isn't a whodunit as much as a howdunit. And I mean, it's 1979, it still works. A game I played very recently, Queen of Phobos, is fantastic. It has a spaceship where there's 4 thieves that are trying to get at this mask. And you're trying to get in there and get the mask before they do. And the thieves all wander around. It's kind of like a board game. And they all kind of have their own different ways you're supposed to be able to stop them. And you can do whatever you want to with them. You can actually ignore them, try to get the mask and escape without them paying attention to them at all. But usually one of them will find you and kill you. So you have to decide things like, okay, how many of them are going to try to stop? And it's also all the items are randomly placed. So again, it's another one of those roguelike style generated games. There are really, you have to go a little bit later to get the really good graphics. This is from 1984. There are some legitimately good graphics, but most of them come later. So there really are some actually good games out there. Yeah, thank you. Let's see here. Kay, by the way, feel free to plug your the podcast, Kay, right? Feel free to plug your podcast too while you're at it, because I did mention it earlier. And even when it's a bad game, you could study and go like, what went wrong? How do I fix it? So like that sleuth game, just after playing, it's like, oh, all these different things like would make it work. What would make it work? And it's fascinating. This game called Death Shift. You can look at the how the parser is. Read message. I don't have it. Tell me what to do. Get message, tell me what to do. Take message, tell me what to do. How do I read this message? It turns out this line right here where it just says, get message, tell me what to do. It actually worked. If you are successful at doing an action, it doesn't tell you anything that you actually were successful. One of the things that you can learn from that is simply that some of these two-word parsers are very workable. Like I don't have any trouble communicating with some of them. It's about transparency and feedback. Does it lie to you? Does it actually say what's wrong if it doesn't understand you and why it doesn't understand you? Not just, give you a strange message. Some of the ones that like have supposedly more full parsers, where you can type like whole phrases, are actually worse parsers because they're just so much more or less transparent. And you get, I guess, the phrase puzzle sometimes, which is so much worse than trying to figure out if this verb works or not. So. Goblins, which had the really dubious picture I showed you earlier with the ogre, actually, I mean, you can learn some things just because we have the map of the 1979 version. And if you compare the map of the 1979 version with the current version, the one version that we actually have, you can see how they kind of ruined it a little bit almost. Like they added all these floof rooms that don't do anything, and they made the map so much more confusing in the process that this actually, once you study the two, it's a worse game by the additions they made. And you can actually study the game design in that sense. It really is amazing that you can see what was going on in people's heads in those years. Incidentally, Goblins started out as a text game that was sold like 20 copies, so just like that in a store, but it was actually on an online BBS, and that's how the people, Highland Associates, found it to make the graphical version, which has the graphics that look like this. And having a complete historical view makes it really easy to see what was borrowed, and what people got fixated on. And then also, like, okay, are we fixated on anything now as game designers? And can you kind of think through the same, like, what is it that we always put in our games that we don't have to? Just to give you an example of something that was really kind of an interesting fixation that I've noticed. All these games have a commonality to them that I'm listing right now. Lost Dutchman's Gold, Pyramid of Doom, Atlantean Odyssey. I mean, I mentioned some of these. This is from a game, Burial Ground Adventure, which there's ammunition, there's a gun, you get ammunition, my gun is now loaded. This is all a red herring right here. This is entirely useless to the game because there's some dogs later. You try to shoot the dogs, they kill you. You don't need the gun. You can just drop the gun. You don't need it. You need the animal meat. That's what you want. You don't need the gun. All of these games have something like that. A fake out where there's a weapon that you either don't use at all or use in a totally unconventional way. Pyramid, you actually have a gun, but you take the gunpowder out. It's what happened was adventure games are actually really hard to make a puzzle where you kill something with an object to make an interesting puzzle. So what happened was essentially all these game designers kind of converge on the same idea of, okay, we're going to have a weapon, but we're actually going to make it a red herring so that we actually have a puzzle that goes with this monster that you have to solve rather than using some violence where there's not really a good way to make a puzzle. So, all right. Yeah, I'm basically at time here. I can only share so much an hour. I mean, I'm sure I could go on for another hour. You, of course, ask questions later. First off, I do, again, all of these things I have written up on my blog. I haven't written about Sleuth yet. That again, is brand new. But a lot of these games, I have long things with my whole journey of playing them. You can also see me beat Time Zone. I actually beat all of Time Zone, the very infamous Euro game. It's all up there, blueringot.blog. Please go visit. I want to give some really quick, simplified takeaways. First off, old adventure games, even the weird, dodgy ones, they're still fun. I had blast playing Sleuth with you guys, even though it was weird. They can still have good design elements, even when the visuals and the parser are still fuzzy. And by playing them, I think one of the most important things is that we're honoring our history by doing that. I'm just thinking, like, 100 years from now, there's some game I wrote. I would love, like just one person plays it, so to keep the spark alive a little bit. I know some of these games are just going to be obscure and they end up in some archive somewhere. But I mean, archiving isn't just about putting it in a file somewhere, but like actually somebody sees it, acknowledges it, and plays it. And I'm trying to, some of these people, like, who are going to speak for them other than somebody who actually is going through these old games and writing about them. So that's part of my goal here. I do have a recommended list, so you don't actually have to try like all the really bad ones. I did include Death Maze 5000, which is horribly difficult. There's sort of my curveball in there, but a lot of these are very playable. There's some Deadline is fantastic. Kadath is a Lovecraft game from 1979. It's like a choice-based game that feels very Lovecraft. It was actually made for an Altair. So like the very almost original home computer is what it was originally written for. And it's actually still a playable game. So I will have these all on my blog. I actually have a post coming up later that you can click links so you don't have to like copy it down or something. But yeah, that's it. Incidentally, I just need to show this. H. Sakaguchi just posted this on his Twitter this week. This is a map from Wizard and Princess, so that's one of the Sierra games. It's on my list right here, number 6. Does anyone know who he is? Just curiosity. He made Final Fantasy. This is the maker of Final Fantasy. Before I started designing games, he made this map. He actually did Final Fantasies all the way up through 7. Yeah, so this is Apple II games were played in Japan. They actually, a lot of the game designers were originally influenced by Apple II games. So, I mean, there's a lot of things about threads of influence I never even got to talk about. But yeah, this is one of the ones that I thought was fascinating, just had to share. So, all right. I think I hit exactly an hour because I started about 4 minutes late. I see questions.